you've ever watched professional cycling, you'll be familiar with the idea of a breakaway. A small group of riders going off the main group of the peloton, whilst the front rider in the small group takes the wind, the riders behind recover, and they take it in turns rotating through. And what better breakaway than Bodnar, Sagan, Froome and Thomas in 2016. Look at the way these riders are moving through and working together. If you've ever ridden with a group, you'll know the difference between riding at the front and riding at the back. You could be heads down, burying yourself at the front, whilst the riders at the back of the group can just be freewheeling along at times. In the recent sub-7 attempt, triathlete Joe Skipper had 8 of the best time trial riders in the world, including aerodynamicist Dan Bigham and World Tour time trial expert Alex Dowsett. They covered 180 kilometres in 3 hours and 16 minutes, averaging a massive 55.2 kilometres an hour. Joe Skipper sat at the back whilst the 7 riders in front of him rotated through, taking the wind for him. To put this into context, that is faster than Victor Campenaert's current hour record of 55.089 kilometres an hour, which he managed for 1 hour. They managed a faster speed for over 3 hours. Essentially, efficient group riding will mean the group will ride faster than the sum of its parts. But that's the pros. What about us in a club environment? Is there a way that we could use a chain gang or a pace line in the same manner that they use in a pro breakaway in a club environment to improve our training benefit? Well, in my opinion, there are 3 main ways that this can help us. Number 1, you'll be familiar with interval training. This is where you go above and then below you put an effort in and then you recover. And that's exactly what's happening on a chain gang. When you're at the front, you're putting an effort in. As you start to rotate round, you're starting to recover. Now, the intensity of that interval will vary depending on the size and the speed of the group. The more riders and the slower it is, the lower the intensity will be. The fewer and the faster the group, the higher the intensity and the less recovery you're going to get. So it's impossible to actually gauge that, but any interval training is going to give you some benefit. The second thing is bike handling and group riding confidence. If you're not that used to riding in a group, working in a chain gang where everybody is super focused on riding together and communicating well will boost your bike handling and confidence skills no end. And the third thing is a rare thing in cycling, the satisfaction of a team effort. They often say that cycling is a team sport played by individuals, but it's true in this case that when you finish a chain gang session for an hour or whatever, it's a huge sense of group satisfaction. So how do they work? Well, in the UK on busier roads, you might find that everybody rides in a single file with the front rider taking the wind. When they've done their turn, they'll swing off, move their way to the back and then leave the next rider in turn. A bit like you can see in a team time trial ably demonstrated by the amazing Movistar drone footage here. On quieter roads, the group might be able to rotate round more in a chain gang or what we call through and off position, where the group rotates clockwise or anti-clockwise and depending on where the wind is. Essentially, the recovery line, which is the one working their way backwards, needs to be out of the wind. So if the wind's coming from your left, you'll rotate in a clockwise position, and if the wind's coming from the right, you'll rotate in an anti-clockwise position. So those recovering riders are out of the wind's way. However, more often than not, road conditions dictate that working in an anti-clockwise rotation is the safest option. The usual signals in any group apply, moving out for an obstruction or a pothole. However, I tend to be a bit more vocal than I do use hand signals because it means that I can keep my hands on the handlebars at all times and remain in complete control of my bike. Look at how this group brilliantly manoeuvres itself around this group of the pedestrians parked on the left-hand side. The lead rider in the recovery group moves his hand behind his back, followed by the riders behind, and they continue to rotate through. This is absolute class communications. However, there are a couple of signals that are esoteric to a chain gang. One of them might be the elbow flick that you see cyclists doing. Now, this is the side that you want the cyclist behind you to come out of. Now, in a single line, what you would be doing when you've done your turn at the front is you would check the traffic, flick your left elbow, and then peel off into the traffic and move your way down the line. So that elbow tells the rider behind to come through on that side. Same would work the other way around. If you're rotating round in an anti-clockwise or a clockwise position, as the rider comes to the front and the front of the recovery rider is here, they would say the word clear, allowing that rider who's moving up the group to know it's safe to come across. It's also worth, like I do, checking under your armpit to make sure you're going to miss their front wheel before getting into the recovery line. As you move your way across to move your way up the group to move your way to the front, as you get past the last rider here, as you go past, it's worth saying last rider so they know it's time to move across. You may also see a ride captain make this motion. This is the indication of A, that you're going to start rotating through, and B, which direction you're going to be doing it in. The best chain gangs I've ever been in have had a ride leader, somebody who's in control and telling the group what to do, how fast to ride, which direction to do, when we're going single file, when we're going to start rotating through and off. But also the riders in the group communicate brilliantly with each other, either telling people to close gaps or to take it easy, to not ride too hard off the front. Don't be afraid to be vocal in your communication. The number one rule with a chain gang is that when you hit the front, you don't power off. The idea is to keep it nice and smooth and controlled. The effort levels dip above and slightly below, just like this, not a case of powering away and essentially attacking the group. Now, in making this video, I filmed 4 different clubs riding in chain gangs and rode in several myself, and I thought it would be best to show this bit of footage with the riders blurred out so you couldn't identify who they are. You can see in this footage that this rider is actually powering away from the group, essentially attacking them, causing a gap behind and at the front of the recovery line. If this were to happen in a bigger group, this would be the result. It takes practice to get great at riding in a chain gang. Now, I've been doing it for donkey's years, and some weeks I get it brilliantly right, and some weeks I really struggle. Sometimes it's to do with the power level, as we'll see fairly shortly. Sometimes it's to do with the riders and me not being quite so sure about the erraticness of their riding, and that might be the same for me for the riders behind me. But it's all about practice, and it's all about getting good at riding as a group. Some of these groups might be no drop groups, which means you'll ride at the pace of the slowest rider. Now, most club rides are like this, but you could also find yourself in a situation of a drop chain gang, which is that when you can't hold your power at the front, you need to get out. We spoke earlier about the size and the pace of a chain gang. I knew I was going to struggle with this even when we were single lined and I was in the recovery line. The pace was so high with this group that I knew I was going to struggle. Now, 8 kilometers in, we turned into the moors where we normally rotate. Now, you can see from the riders' reactions at the back of the group here that the gap that I've left, even though the wide angle lens exacerbates the distance between you and the rider in front, you can see I'm losing the wheel here. I thought I'd give it one go and try and close the gap. I closed the gap, got to the front, and then when I got into the recovery line, I get to the back, throw my arm up in the air and just let the riders know that I am out. I didn't get any further than 8k into this chain gang. It's okay to miss a couple of turns, and that's absolutely fine, but if you are holding the group up, it is worth dropping off the back. And if you're in a group where there are several chain gangs at different paces, you can then drop back to the one behind it. However, do tell somebody in the group that you are dropping out, because it means that they won't be waiting for you as the line comes round, because they'll probably know in their heads how many riders there are in your chain gang. When done properly, a chain gang is poetry in motion. It is satisfying, it's smooth, it's fast, it's absolutely awesome. Now, if this video has convinced you to give it a go, and your club doesn't run one, well, maybe speak to somebody there about putting together a little development squad where you can ride at an easy pace and learn all of the signals. However, there's probably a good chance that one of your local clubs already puts one on, and I would highly recommend you give it a go. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, hit the notifications bell, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment below if you've done chain gangs or you haven't done one and you fancy doing it, and let me know any thoughts, concerns, or why you enjoy doing them. See you on the next video.